In the year 2371, space was no longer empty for humans. It was unknown, but not unreachable. Earth had sent explorers to the edge of the solar system, built stations on moons, and even settled a few nearby planets. Peace had lasted for decades, and with peace came curiosity. That's why the Unified Earth Defense Council, UADC, funded the Vigilant Dawn, the most advanced starship ever built, not for war, but for reaching out. It carried scientists, diplomats, soldiers, and the best of human minds. Captain Alara Miles stood at the helm, a woman known for her calm mind and iron will. She had seen war when the Martian colonies rebelled years ago, but now she hoped for something different. The mission was simple: follow the signal. Months ago, deep space antennas caught a pattern, mathematical, intelligent, alien. It came from beyond known space, then vanished. The team called it the Whisper. People hoped it was a greeting. When the Vigilant Dawn reached the edge of charted space, a vast emptiness surrounded them. No stars closer than light years. Then came the message, not a voice, but data carved into light. It repeated one sentence: turn back. You are not ready. The crew stared in silence. Was it a threat? A warning? A test? No one knew. Alara didn't flinch. She gave the order to go forward. The universe didn't welcome them. The stars didn't shine brighter. In fact, everything grew colder. Instruments began failing, shields flickered, gravity shifted, and time itself felt unstable. Then came the silence, not just from Earth, but from the ship. Systems froze. Lights dimmed. The ship floated like a ghost through space. In the dark, something moved, no shape, no form, just. Crew members reported seeing flashes outside, shadows where nothing should be. One by one, people grew quiet. Fear spread like a virus. No enemy appeared, yet the crew felt watched. Alara stood firm, recording everything, hoping to leave some trace of what they found. Suddenly, the stars bent, literally bent, as if reality had folded. From that fold came a ship, massive and smooth, shaped like a blade with no markings. It didn't fire. It didn't speak. It simply hovered. A beam of light scanned the Vigilant Dawn, then the alien ship vanished as quickly as it came. Moments later, power returned and communications lit up. Earth was back on the channel, but no one knew what had happened. The log showed they had been gone for 3 minutes. To the crew, it had been 3 days. Earth didn't believe the report. The signal was written off as interference. The warning ignored. But Alara knew. The stars weren't empty. Something watched. Something judged. And it had let them live not out of kindness, but curiosity. As the Vigilant Dawn turned back toward Earth, Alara stood alone at the bridge window, staring into the place where the stars had bent. She whispered to herself, "They didn't ask us to leave. They warned us because they remember what happens when others don't." She didn't know then that this was not the end of humanity's first contact. It was the start of a war that would burn through galaxies, and in that fire, the truth of humanity would be revealed. When the Vigilant Dawn returned to Earth, it did not bring answers, it brought fear. Captain Alara Miles tried to explain what had happened in the dark space beyond the charts, how a silent force warned them to turn back, how time had bent and something unnatural had scanned their ship. But the Council didn't want fear, they wanted facts. Scientists dismissed her experience as sensor glitches, and politicians labeled her report as overreaction. Alara, once celebrated, was now quietly retired and pushed aside. But she didn't stop watching the stars. And when the outer colonies stopped sending signals one by one, she knew the warning had not been a bluff. Earth lost contact with Titan Station, then Europa's mining fields went silent. At first, they thought it was a solar flare. But when a survivor pod arrived carrying only one injured officer muttering, they came from nowhere. Everything changed. The alien force, the T-Rel, had returned, and this time, they didn't speak. They attacked with weapons Earth couldn't understand, ships that ignored gravity and tore metal apart without heat or sound. Earth's defenses scrambled, sending warships and drones, but they were wiped out within seconds. Lasers passed through T-Rel shields like air. Nukes didn't even scratch their hulls. The T-Rel didn't destroy everything they picked: targets, communication hubs, power grids, leadership centers. They didn't want to conquer. They wanted silence. The panic spread across the planet. The people, once proud of peace, now begged for protection. That's when the UEDC called Elara back. They had no choice. She didn't want revenge, she wanted survival. With limited resources, she was given command of a smaller fleet, patched together with old tech and experimental weapons no one had dared use before. She called it the Ghost Line. The plan was simple: don't fight like Earth. Fight like humans. Think fast, hit harder, and disappear. They started using stealth ships, mirror shields, and decoy satellites. They studied the T-Rel movements, waited for their blind spots, then struck not to destroy, but to learn. Every piece of wreckage became a clue. Slowly, they understood the enemy. The T-Rel relied on pattern recognition. Their systems learned and predicted behavior. But humans were unpredictable. They broke patterns. They acted on instinct. They made illogical moves that machines couldn't foresee. And for the first time, a T-Rel vessel was destroyed not by firepower, but by misdirection. It was a small win, but it cracked the myth of their invincibility. The message spread across Earth: they can bleed. People volunteered again. Scientists returned to the labs. Factories that once built luxury items now forged weapons, armor, and data worms meant to crash alien systems. The Ghost Line became legend. Elara was no longer a soldier. She was a symbol. But the T-Rel didn't stay passive. They adapted too. In retaliation, they launched a strike on the Mars Arcology, home to over 2 million people. It was not a battle. It was a massacre. No survivors. No signals. Just ash. That's when humanity changed. No longer hoping for peace, they embraced the idea that survival required sacrifice. Hackers uploaded viruses into alien tech. Pilots flew suicide missions to break supply chains. Civilians became spies, tracking T-Rel drones through cities. The war spread beyond Earth, beyond the solar system. And in the void between stars, fire danced silent, bright, deadly. Each side evolved, but the difference remained. The T-Rel fought to control. The humans fought because they had no other choice. Elara stood once more on the bridge of her ship, the silent saber, watching the ruins of Station Haven drift into darkness. Her hands clenched the railing, eyes unblinking. She had lost crew, friends, and faith, but not her will. She turned to her officers and gave the order for the next strike. They would not beg. They would not hide. They would fight not for victory, but for the right to exist. And as the stars lit up with battle once more, one truth became clear to both sides. Humanity might be weaker, but it was never helpless. It was chaos in motion. Fire in the void. The war had changed everything. Earth was no longer just a blue dot in the galaxy, it was a spark that refused to die. Against all odds, humans had survived the first waves of the T-Rel invasion. Captain Elara Miles, leading the Ghost Line, had turned desperation into strategy, and every small victory inspired a little more hope. But Earth could not keep fighting alone. The T-Rel Empire stretched across hundreds of systems, controlling thousands of species. Most of them had been conquered, enslaved, or silenced. And yet, hidden in the dark corners of space, some had not forgotten the fire of freedom. One by one, strange encrypted signals reached human ears. They came from refugee satellites, broken transmitters, and forgotten outposts. The messages were always short, always risky. We saw you fight. We want to listen. Elara knew what that meant. These were the lost voices of the galaxy, waiting for someone to speak first. She decided to answer. But trust in space was a rare thing. The T-Rel had used betrayal like a weapon, turning allies against each other with lies and fear. So Elara sent a coded invitation to 10 of the responding species, asking them to meet in a neutral zone near the remains of the lost Dyson ring, a structure once created by a proud civilization that no longer existed. There, in the shadow of a dead empire, she hoped to build something new. The meeting was dangerous. The journey even more so. No one knew if spies followed them or if a T-Rel fleet waited behind some distant moon. But still, they came. From broken freighters and rusted ships, from cloaked vessels and drifting carriers they arrived. The Yervans, who spoke only through scent, the Makai, a silicon-based lifeform that communicated with electric pulses, the Olin, once known for their peaceful ways but now hardened by years of hiding. They entered the meeting hall in silence, unsure if it was real, unsure if it was a trap. Alara stood before them not with weapons but with words. She did not promise victory. She did not claim to lead. She simply told the truth that Earth had been warned, attacked, and nearly destroyed, but had learned how to fight back. She showed them the wreckage of a T-Rel ship, the strategies humans used, the mistakes that gave them openings. She told them the one thing they needed to hear: you are not alone anymore. That was the moment the Ember Accord was born. It was not signed with ink or sealed with handshakes. It was a whisper passed from captain to captain, a message carved into data cores and laser etched into hulls. It meant cooperation in secret, unity in silence. No empire, no command, just a shared promise. If one fought, all would help. At first, it was simple. A Makai drone shared navigation data. An Olin scout warned of incoming raids. Yervan ships created a scent-coded minefield that confused the T-Rel sensors. Each action, small on its own, became part of a larger web. Together, they slowed the T-Rel advance. They didn't win, but they didn't lose, and that scared the enemy more than anything. The T-Rel believed in control, in logic, in dominance. But the Ember Accord thrived on chaos, risk, and strange alliances. The T-Rel began to notice strange patterns. Their raids were met with resistance in places they once thought forgotten. Their data streams were hacked by languages they didn't recognize. They started deploying new AI hunters, more aggressive, more violent. Civilians were now targeted as much as soldiers. Alara watched all this unfold and realized the cost of leadership. She was no longer just a captain. She had become a symbol of rebellion, a light in the dark that everyone could see, including the enemy. Tensions rose even within the Accord. Some species feared the growing attention. Others wanted to go further, to strike the T-Rel heartworlds. Debates grew louder. The unity they built was fragile, and the wrong step could break it. Then came the betrayal. A minor faction within the Accord, driven by fear, handed over coordinates of a secret human base in exchange for protection. The T-Rel attacked, killing hundreds. The news shattered the alliance. For a moment, it seemed the Ember Accord would fall apart. But Alara didn't let it end there. She didn't call for revenge. She called for understanding. If we break now, she told them, then the T-Rel don't have to destroy us. We'll destroy ourselves. Her words echoed through the channels. Slowly, painfully, trust was rebuilt. This time stronger, more cautious, more real. The betrayal became a lesson, not a wound. The Accord changed after that. It became more than an agreement. It became a movement. Civilians in hidden colonies painted ember signs on walls. Smugglers passed along codes and food. Scientists from multiple species worked together to design hybrid weapons. And across the stars, where once only silence ruled, the fire of rebellion began to spread. The T-Rel realized something dangerous was growing, not a fleet, but a belief. That belief had a name now. And it started with humanity. The stars no longer looked the same. Once, they had been symbols of wonder and hope, but now they were reminders of danger. Ships vanished without warning. Colonies were destroyed in silence, and the galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Captain Alara Miles had become more than a name. She was a symbol of resistance, hope, and danger, all at once. The Ember Accord had grown stronger, and so had the T-Rel's response. Their new weapons were faster, smarter, and colder than before. No more hesitation. No more warnings. Entire moons were turned to dust by weapons that didn't leave heat, only silence. But Alara knew something had changed in the enemy, too. They were pushing harder, faster, and with less control. It wasn't just about war anymore. It was about fear. The T-Roll feared something they didn't understand. Humanity had faced death and fought back with strategy, chaos, and a will that didn't follow rules. They had allies now, species the T-Rel thought they had broken. It didn't make sense to them, and that was dangerous. Alara decided it was time to understand the T-Rel, not just fight them. She led a secret mission deep into T-Rel space, with a small crew made up of human and alien specialists. Their goal was not to destroy anything, it was to learn. What they found changed everything. Inside a dark corner of space, surrounded by broken stars and radiation fields, they found the ruins of an ancient city. Not human. Not T-Rel. Something older. Inside, the ruins were carving stories written in symbols that spoke of a time when the T-Rel were not the hunters, but the hunted. Long ago, another species had ruled this part of space, cruel and powerful, feeding on minds and memories. The early T-Rel had been victims then, running and hiding, just like humanity was now. To survive, they had removed everything they believed made them weak: emotion, creativity, empathy. They replaced it with logic, control, structure. It worked. They defeated their enemy, but in doing so, they became something else. They had forgotten who they were. They turned their fear into a weapon, and over time, they believed the lie that they were meant to rule. Alara stared at those ruins and understood the truth. The T-Rel didn't hate humanity. They feared becoming human again. They feared feeling, failing, choosing chaos over order. And in every human victory, they saw not just defeat, but a mirror of what they once were. She downloaded everything, but the moment they tried to leave, the T-Rel attacked. They had known all along. A trap. The ship shook, systems failed, and the stars outside became weapons. One by one, escape routes closed. Alara ordered the crew to split. Half would escape with the data, the rest would stay behind to buy time. She remained with the decoy ship, flying it into the heart of the trap, knowing full well it was her last flight. But fate had other plans. At the last second, a fleet of Allan stealth fighters appeared, summoned by a silent distress beacon she had triggered moments before. They hit hard and vanished just as fast, buying Alara enough time to eject and be picked up by the survivors. She lived, but she changed. When she returned to Earth, she didn't bring glory. She brought a truth that no one wanted to hear, that the T-Rel were not invincible, but also not monsters. They were a reflection of what humanity could become if it lost its soul. Many in the Accord felt uneasy. They didn't want to understand the enemy, they wanted to destroy them. But Alara reminded them that winning wasn't just about surviving. It was about staying human. Meanwhile, the T-Rel grew more desperate. Their ships became larger, their attacks more brutal. They began using devices that erased memories, causing entire populations to forget who they were. It was not just war, it was a war against identity. Earth's skies darkened as strange storms spread across orbit, caused by T-Rel experiments meant to bend time and space. Shadows moved in those clouds, silent machines that watched everything. People called them ghost eyes. No one knew what they saw or what they sent back, but every time they appeared, something vanished. Earth began building underground cities and hidden bunkers. The old world faded as survival took priority. Yet even in the darkest places, fires still burned. Stories of Alara's sacrifice, the Ember Accord's courage, and humanity's refusal to be silent gave people strength. Artists painted with light, children played war games where they always won, and scientists worked day and night to unlock the secrets the ruins had revealed. The galaxy was afraid, but not of the T-Rel anymore. It was afraid of what humanity was becoming, not just a survivor, but a force capable of changing everything. In the shadows of Earthlight, something was rising. Not a weapon, not a ship, but an idea that freedom was not given, it was taken. And that truth, once lit, could never be darkened again. The final hour was not announced by trumpets or alarms, it came quietly, like a breath before a storm. Across the galaxy, systems flickered, stars dimmed for a moment, and the T-Rel fleets began to move with purpose. They no longer wanted control. They wanted an ending. The Ember Accord had become a thorn too sharp to ignore, and Earth, the heart of it. Captain Alara Miles stood once again at the edge of battle, older, more scarred, but unshaken. She had seen enough destruction to last 100 lifetimes, and yet she still believed in the one thing that had carried them this far, the light inside people, the choice to resist, to rise, to be more than what fear allowed. The ruins found in deep space had revealed the T-Rel's origins, and humanity had begun to understand them, but there was no more time for questions. The T-Rel had launched their final wave massive ships that bent gravity, erased matter, and disrupted thought itself. Earth had no weapons strong enough to stop them head-on, so Alora and the Accord chose a different path. If they could not outgun the enemy, they would outthink them. Operation Mirage was born, a plan so dangerous and desperate that only humans could have designed it. While the T-Rel focused on Earth, a fleet of Accord ships scattered across space, creating false signals, illusions of movement, and phantom planets. Artificial intelligence, stolen from fragments of T-Rel code, was used to mirror human behavior so well that it confused their systems. The goal was not to destroy the enemy, but to make them chase shadows long enough for Alora's team to reach the source. Hidden deep inside a black dwarf star was the T-Rel Nexus core, the mind of their entire network. It was never guarded by soldiers, because no one had ever found it until now. The plan was simple: reach the Nexus, shut it down, and break the chain of command. Without it, the T-Rel fleets would scatter. The journey took weeks, passing through dead zones, radiation storms, and space folded in unnatural shapes. Alora's ship, the Silent Saber, led the mission, crewed by humans, Olin, Makai, and Yurvan allies. Every single one of them had lost something to the war. None expected to return. As they reached the Nexus, a strange silence took hold. No alarms, no guards, only the hum of distant energy and the slow turning of machines older than any civilization still breathing. The core itself was not a weapon, it was a memory vault, a mind built from the fears of a species that once ran from extinction. Alara walked through halls filled with light and shadows, where thoughts floated like dust. She felt their pain, their fear, their need to control what they couldn't understand. It was like standing inside the mind of a dying god. The choice came quickly. To shut the Nexus down, someone had to stay behind. The system could only be stopped from inside, and once shut, no return. No rescue. Alora looked at her crew, then at the terminal pulsing before her. She smiled, not with regret, but peace. This was her fight from the beginning. This was her end. She gave her final message to the Accord. We are not machines. We are not ghosts. We are the fire that remembers. And today, we choose the light. Then she pressed her hand to the core, and the stars shook. Across the galaxy, TL ships paused. Their patterns collapsed, their commands fell silent. One by one, they shut down, drifting like leaves in the wind. Earth, once a target, now watched as the enemy vanished into silence. The war didn't end in a blaze of glory, but in understanding. The Accord didn't celebrate with parades. They built gardens where battles once raged. They wrote stories in every language, not of heroes, but of choices. Of light chosen when darkness seemed easier. Alara Miles never returned, but her name lived on, carved into the walls of every Accord world. Not as a warrior, but as a reminder that survival is not about who hits hardest, but who holds on to their soul. And in the heart of every city, beneath every sky, people looked up at the stars again, not with fear, but with wonder. Because now they knew, even in the darkest places, the smallest light can change everything. And that was the truth. Humanity gave the galaxy the light we choose.